Hi everybody. I haven't seen you for a while. This is lesson 12. So we are at the beginning of August in the superheat awaiting a hurricane. It's been a very strange summer. I don't have much good to say about it, but there it is. Um, Nevertheless, the music goes on, and my hope is that some of you are learning some skills, learning some information about music that will actually make you better musicians so that when we get back together, you will have skills you didn't have before. That's the idea. Um, so today we're going to talk about rhythm again. I know it's your favorite subject. Um, but I want to emphasize the fact that being able to read notes and knowing intervals and being able to sing them correctly is important. But being able to read and understand rhythms is even more important. It's more difficult. And I have found that a piece of music that I give you that has complicated melodies and harmonies and intervals and all of that doesn't throw you very much. But when I give you a piece that has complicated rhythms, then you start to sort of get bogged down. So I realize that our learning of how to read rhythms is something that we need to spend more time on. So we're going to talk about dotted rhythms today. We're going to talk a little bit about ties, but mostly we're going to talk about dotted rhythms. So, when we have quarter notes and half notes and eighth notes, and we can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's all very well and good and very easy to do. And the relationship between the notes is a simple 2-to-1 relationship. But we all know, you know, and I know that our rhythms in our music and in our speech are not always even and regular. We don't always speak like this with one note per beat. We move things around, we lengthen some things, we shorten some things, we do all kinds of things with rhythm in voice and in speech that have to be translated into music on the printed page. So the people who developed how we read rhythms came up with some clever things. First of all, you have 2 sheets that you should have downloaded. And I'm going to keep mine right here and speak about them from here rather than hold them up because I think that's a little awkward. So I'm going to start with the sheet that just says Lesson 12 on the top. And under that it says ties. And it shows you how we use ties to make notes longer. So if we want you to hold a note that you're singing for 4 beats, but there's a measure line that comes at the end, and we start our word on a half note, but we want it to last for 4 beats. We've run out of beats in that measure. We can't put a whole note in that measure. So we put another half note on the other side of the measure, and we tie them together with a curved line under the 2 notes. That adds the 2 together. It's very simple. 2 plus 2 is 4. So you hold it for 4 beats. So in other words, 2 half notes tied together are equivalent to a whole note. And 2 quarter notes together are equivalent to a half note. Whether or not they go over a measure line. Sometimes composers, for their own reasons, use a tie instead of just writing a half note. We've often noticed that in chorus. I'll say, you've got 2 quarter notes tied together. The composer might just as well have written a half note, but he didn't. 2 eighth notes tied together equal a quarter note. 2 16th notes tied together equal an eighth note. It's a simple way of making sense out of the 2-to-1 relationship. Now, I also had just gave you a reminder that the little line that connects 2 eighth notes is called a beam. When you have an eighth note and an eighth note and you hook them together with a horizontal line, that line is called a beam. Well, 16th notes are connected with 2 beams, so you have this double line connecting 16th notes. If you have a single eighth note or a single 16th note, and they're not beamed together, the little curvy line on the side of the stem is called a flag. So a note with a flag is an eighth note. A note with 2 flags is a 16th note. More often than not, you'll see them beamed together because frequently eighth notes and 16th notes come in groups of more than one, several. Then there's the other concept that we have talked about a little bit, and that's called a triplet. A triplet is when a composer is going along 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all of a sudden he has a word, let's say, that goes ba ba ba. And he says, how am I going to fit ba 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 into da 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 da? Well, listen, da 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 da, just like that. That's called a triplet, where we throw 3 notes into the space that's usually held with 2 notes. So instead of pairs of eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we have 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and, or 1, 2 and a 3 and 4. Da 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 is one example of a triplet. Composers use them all the time. We sing them all the time, and they are always marked with a small 3 written above the 3 notes, usually with a curved line or a bracket or something that shows exactly where those 3 notes are. Okay, you should be looking at those things, reminding yourself what they mean. They're not very hard to understand, but they take a little bit of your attention, and that's really all I'm asking. Now we're going to get into dots. A dot that is written next to a note head extends the length of that note by half of itself. It increases the value of the note by half. So if the note is actually equal to 1 beat and you put a dot next to it, it's now equal to 1.5 beats. If it's usually equal to 2 beats, and you put a dot next to it, now it's equal to 3 beats. If it's usually equal to a half a beat, and you put a dot next to it, it's now equal to 3/4 of a beat. This is going to take you into severe mathematical shock, I understand. You haven't studied fractions for many years, but really, if you think about it, it's pretty simple. And if you can't figure it out, draw yourself a pie. And then start thinking about eighths, quarters, halves, and whole. A pie will help if you need a visual. So on this sheet that says Lesson 12, I have given you, I've just drawn some dotted notes, a dotted whole note, a dotted half note, a dotted quarter note, a dotted eighth note, and shown you what that means. It means a whole note tied to a half note, if you want to think of it that way, 4 plus 2. So a dotted whole note is worth 6 points. I'm assuming, by the way, the quarter note is equal to 1, and we all know that that's not always true. But for the moment, the quarter note is equal to 1, then a whole note is equal to 4, and a dotted whole note is equal to 6. 4 plus 2. If a quarter note is equal to 1, then a dotted half note is equal to 3. In other words, a half note plus half of a half note. 2 plus 1, 3. A dotted quarter note, if a quarter note gets 1, then that dot is worth a half. So a dotted quarter note is equal to 1.5. 1 plus a half. A dotted eighth note, if an eighth note is worth a half, then a dotted eighth note is worth 3/4. A half plus a quarter, plus a half of a half, which is a quarter. A half plus a quarter equals 3/4. If you look at your Lesson 12 sheet, there is a thing that says Study These. And I've given you 4 examples of things to look at. So first you have to look at the time signature, 6/4. Number 1 is 6/4. 6 beats in a measure, the quarter note gets 1 beat. If the quarter note gets 1 beat, then the half note gets 2. So in 6/4, we can have 3 half notes. Each one is equal to 2 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So every measure has to add up to 6. So in the second measure, I gave you a dotted whole note. That's 6 beats. In the third measure, I gave you a whole note. That's 4 plus 2 quarter notes. Those are each worth 1. So 4 plus 1 plus 1 is 6. And the last measure is a half note followed by a whole note. That's 2 plus 4 equals 6. Okay? Number 2, 3/4 time. Remember, you have 3 beats in a measure, and the quarter note gets 1 beat. Always look at the meter signature and ask yourself, what does that mean? And make that go through your brain before you try anything else. So number 2, you have 3 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. Second measure, you have a dotted half note, which is equal to 3 quarter notes. It's equal to a half note plus a quarter note, which is 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. So you would sing ba, 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 ba. Third measure is a half note plus a quarter note, 1, 2, plus 1. And the fourth measure is a quarter note plus a half note, just the other way around, 1, 2. So how about if I sing that? Number 2, I'm just going to sing on one note. Ba, 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 ba. Simple. Number 3 is in 4/4 time. That means 4 beats in a measure and the quarter note gets 1 beat. So we have 4 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the next measure we have a quarter note followed by an eighth note. Now that means that the quarter note is worth 1.5 beats and the eighth note is worth a half. So then we have another quarter note and then 2 eighth notes. That sounds like this. Ba, 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 ba. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and is the way I count that out loud. Notice that the dotted quarter note is quite long. It's longer than a quarter note. It's a whole half a beat longer. So in fact, beat 2 happens while you're holding it. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. That 2, I said it really softly because it happens. Beats are steady. Remember, beats never change. The beat happens, but I don't count it loudly because I don't want you to think of it as something you have to sing on. So if I were to sing, no, I'll keep going. Third measure of number 3. Ba, 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 ba. Again, the second note has been lengthened by a half of itself, so it's longer. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have a whole note. So if I were to sing number 3, ba, 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 ba. We're singers. We understand that music is often written to go with words. For our music, it's always written to go with words. And so the rhythm that is inherent in the words has to be written onto, or has to be written down so that we can sing it correctly. See if you can follow the rest of that. Rests are also dotted sometimes, and they work with exactly the same rules. Now turn to Lesson 12, Class Practice, and assume that the quarter note equals 1. And numbers 1 through 16 are little addition problems. It's math class all over again. You have to add the value of the notes and see what you come up with. And I would be very interested to know if you have trouble with this. I will send you an email that has the answers to these questions and see how well you do. Give yourself a quiz and let me know how your score is. Then we have count and clap. Write in the counting numbers if it helps. So in number 1, I gave you an example and I wrote in the answers. Now it gets a little bit more complicated as you get to dotted eighth notes and 16th notes. So a dotted eighth note and a 16th note is a really common rhythm that we see in music all the time. And again, assuming the quarter note gets 1 beat, it's going to be da 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 da. That's a dotted quarter note and an eighth note. Da da da. But da 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 da. No. See, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and a 3. 1, 2, and a 3. 1, 2, and 3. Ba, 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 ba. Now, if you didn't know I was just speaking number 1, I'll clap it. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I want you to do to all of these, numbers 1 through 4. And I want you to stop and think. I don't want you to just jump in and say, oh, I can do this. I want you to think about it. I want you to write in the counts if it helps you. Now I will point out in number 1 that the correct way to count, or to write in the counts on the second beat, is two-ienda. Two-ienda. And the note actually comes on the two-ienda. Da 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 da. So ba 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 ba. 1, 2-ienda 1. 1, 2-ienda 3. 4-ienda 1. Da 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 da. Because what you're doing is taking the beat really and dividing it into its 4 16th notes and just speaking or singing on 1 and 4 of those 4. Think about it. Ba, 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 ba. Those 16th notes come really quickly. Um, I think the first one that I wrote in the counting is sort of the hardest one of the bunch. But I want you to look at all of them. Be very sure you look at the time signature. How many beats in a measure? What kind of note gets one beat? What does that mean? Which note gets the beat? What does the dot mean? Ask yourself all these things. I threw in some rests so that you would notice those too. And I want to see if you can do that. I think I will write the answers to those as well, the written in counting numbers, and send you an email later on with the answers. But see if you can do it without looking at the answers, okay? Dotted rhythms are really important. They're the difference between da 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 and da 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 da. It's really important that we get those dots in there or we wouldn't be able to do those kinds of rhythms. Happy birthday. It's not happy birthday. It's happy birthday. Because that's how we say happy birthday. We elongate the first syllable. It's what we do in speech. We do it in music too. Anyway, I hope you have stayed cool. I hope you will stay dry tomorrow. And hopefully by the end of the week, some of this horrible heat and humidity and everything will have gone away and we'll have nice summer days. And I want you all to stay well. I want you to wear your masks. I want you to stay 6 feet apart from your friends and other people that you run into. I want you to stay home a lot. I want you to feel healthy and I want you to feel safe. And we will come out of this. We really will. And I miss you all a lot. Bye.